In April of 2007, a coyote walked through the front door of a Quiznos in downtown Chicago, crossed a sandwich shop full of people at the lunch hour, and climbed into the open drink cooler. It lay down among the bottles and stayed there for the better part of an hour, watching the room. Staff called for help. The animal did not panic, did not lunge, did not bolt. It had simply walked into the third largest city in America, into a fast food restaurant in the middle of the day, and decided the cooler would do. It made the evening news as a curiosity. A lost wild animal, a funny clip, a story for the end of the broadcast. It was none of those things. It was not lost. An urban ecologist who studies these animals would later call the behavior aberrant, mind-boggling. Wild predators do not stand 6 feet from a crowd of people without a flicker of fear. But this one did, because the coyote in that cooler was not quite the animal everyone assumed it was. It was something newer, and it had been moving into the country's cities and forests for decades while almost no one noticed. It would mean less if it were the only one. It is one of millions. Coyotes now live in the heart of nearly every major American city. There are up to 2,000 of them in metropolitan Chicago alone. A breeding pair has denned inside Central Park in Manhattan. They raise their young in Washington's Rock Creek Park, hunt the canyons of Los Angeles, and trot the greenways of Denver, Seattle, and Atlanta after dark. And across the rural East, something else was happening at the same time. Hunters kept reporting coyotes that were wrong. Too big, too heavy, with jaws too broad. Animals running 40, 50, 60 pounds, hunting deer in a way coyotes were not supposed to hunt. Two patterns, in the cities and in the woods, pointing at the same conclusion. The animal people were calling a coyote had changed. This is the space the whole story lives in. It is not the slight 20-pound desert coyote of the American West. It is not a wolf, either. Not the animal that was hunted out of the eastern United States a century ago. It is something between the two. An animal that science spent decades arguing over, and in some corners, is arguing over still. The argument is not whether it exists. It is what, exactly, it has become. The answer is written in its DNA, and the reading is stranger than anyone expected. In 2014, a team led by Javier Monzon, then at Stony Brook University with the ecologist Roland Kays, analyzed the genomes of more than 400 of these eastern coyotes using 63 ancestry-informative genetic markers. The result was not a coyote. On average, the animal's genome came back roughly 64% coyote, about 26% wolf, a blend of eastern wolf and gray wolf, and around 10% domestic dog. A separate analysis of 2 decades of genetic studies put the northeastern animal near 60% coyote, 30% wolf, 10% dog. 3 different species braided into one animal, walking around the suburbs of the most populous part of the country. Kays called it an amazing contemporary evolution story happening right under our noses. The popular name for it tells you most of what you need to know: the coy wolf. How it formed is a story of absence and of a door left open. Coyotes were never eastern animals. For thousands of years, they belonged to the open deserts and grasslands of the American West, and nothing about the dense forests of the East suited them. But in the 18 and early 1900s, Americans did 2 things to that eastern landscape. They cleared the forests for farms, and they exterminated the wolves, shot, trapped, and poisoned out of existence across the entire eastern half of the continent. That left the largest predator niche in eastern North America suddenly, completely empty. And around 1900, the coyote began to move into it. The expansion funneled around the Great Lakes, and on the northern route, up through Ontario, the coyotes pushing east ran into the last survivors of the very wolves that had been wiped out everywhere else. A remnant population of eastern wolves with no coyotes of their own to breed with, and few wolves left to choose from. So they bred with the newcomers. Wolf genes poured into the coyote line. Dog genes joined along the way, from the feral dogs that trailed human settlement. And the animal that came out the other side was not the coyote that went in. It was bigger, bolder, more adaptable, and it swept east across New England and the mid-Atlantic, reaching Maine by the 1930s, filling the exact vacancy the wolf had left behind. The forest had not changed back. A new predator had simply been assembled to occupy it. What makes the coy wolf so successful is that it inherited the best of all 3 of its ancestors. From the wolf, it took size and the ability to hunt large prey and run in family packs. From the dog, it took a tolerance for noise for pavement, for the constant presence of human beings. And from the coyote, it kept the raw adaptability that let the species exploit nearly any landscape on Earth. The numbers bear it out. An eastern coyote runs roughly twice the weight of a western one. 30 to 50 pounds is normal, and the exceptional animals go higher. An 82-pound male was shot in Newfoundland in 2012. Their ears and tails are shorter, better suited to dense forest than open desert. They hunt deer in pairs, running them in relays, and a single family group can consume around 600 pounds of deer in a year. In the Adirondacks, in New England, across the rural Northeast, the coy wolf is now the dominant land predator. Sitting in the chair the gray wolf was forced out of, eating much the same meal. The hybridization did not just make a bigger coyote. The mixing introduced genes that actually expanded what the animal could eat and where it could live. This is evolution running in fast forward, a new predator built in about 100 years, while people watched and mostly looked away. And it has not stopped. The scale of the conquest is the part that should be hard to believe. In 2018, Roland Kays and James Hody mapped the entire history of the species from more than 12,000 records, and the picture they assembled is of one of the fastest, broadest range expansions any large predator has ever managed. An animal of the western deserts now occupies all 49 of the mainland United States, from Alaska to Maine. Coyotes cross sea ice to colonize the island of Newfoundland. They have pushed the length of Central America and crossed the Panama Canal. And active cameras now record them at the edge of the Darien Gap, the last wild barrier between them and South America, a continent their kind has never set foot on. They did all of this in roughly a century, during the same 100 years that most other mammals on Earth were vanishing. As Kays put it, the coyote is thriving in the human age precisely when almost nothing else is. The urban frontier is still moving too. The Central Park breeding pair, known to the photographers who tracked them as Romeo and Juliet, reached Manhattan by trotting down from Westchester into the Bronx and walking the railroad tracks across a bridge into the most surveilled island on the planet, where they now raise pups beside a Shakespeare theater. The animal is still spreading, still adapting this year, which is the strangest thing about the coy wolf, and the reason almost no one understands it is there. A phantom black cat is invisible because it is rare. The coy wolf is the opposite. It is invisible because it is everywhere. And because it is wearing a disguise no one looks at twice, the ordinary coyote that nobody bothers to study in their own neighborhood. The animals in Chicago live in the densest parts of the city, while almost completely avoiding contact with the people around them, moving at night, slipping along rail lines and green corridors, denning in cemeteries and golf courses, and the scrub behind strip malls. Millions of people who have never knowingly seen one have a new apex predator living within a few blocks of their homes. The evidence is not hidden or thin. It is overwhelming. People simply do not see what they are not looking for. The skeptic's objection here is not where is the proof is everywhere, but rather, so what? It is just a coyote. The new species talk is hype, and part of that is fair, so it should be said plainly. The name coy wolf is genuinely disputed. Many scientists, Kays among them, argue the animal is mostly coyote and is best called simply the eastern coyote, not dressed up as something half-wolf. The wolf fraction is a quarter to a third, not a half. It does not, as a rule, pull down healthy adult deer single-handedly. Its deer are mainly fawns, the sick, and the winter weakened, usually taken in pairs. Its packs are small, a mated couple and their pups, nothing like the complex society of a true wolf pack. It almost never poses a danger to a person, and some of the giant coyote stories told around hunting camps are exaggerations, but conceding all of that does not make the animal ordinary. The genetics are not in dispute, only the label. It really does carry functional wolf and dog DNA that Western coyotes simply do not have, and those genes do real work. The size, the broader skull, the capacity to take deer are measurable consequences of them. And whether or not a taxonomist signs off on the word species, the thing on the landscape is functionally new. It occupies a role, the deer hunting top predator of the eastern forests and the adaptable carnivore of the American city, that neither the pure western coyote nor the exterminated eastern wolf ever filled. The fight over what to call it is a fight about a word. The animal underneath the word is real, and it is not the animal that was here before. So the science does not claim a wolf has returned to the suburbs. It claims something more precise and more interesting than the myth. In about 100 years, a small desert coyote absorbed the genes of two relatives that were disappearing, the last eastern wolves and the dogs at the edge of town, and turned into a different animal, larger, able to hunt deer, able to live in the center of a city, and still spreading across two continents. Call it a hybrid, call it an eastern coyote, call it a coy wolf. By any name, a predator that did not exist a few generations ago now lives in every mainland state and nearly every major city in America. And most of the people sharing their towns with it have never once realized it is there. So it ends where it began, in a sandwich shop in Chicago, with an animal lying calmly in a cooler full of bottles while a crowd of people stares. It was not lost, and it was not a joke. It was claiming territory, the same way its kind has quietly claimed a continent, one rail line and one empty lot at a time while everyone's attention was somewhere else. The thing in that cooler was part wolf, part dog, part coyote, a predator that built itself in a century and walked through the front door of a city of 3 million people. It is out there right now, in the dark, in the parks and the deer woods and the gaps between the houses, in numbers no one can fully count. Not the wild thing that came back, but the new one that no one noticed arriving.